Hey, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to Nerd Initiative. I'm Derek, also known as Paperweight Entertainment. And tonight, I have the great pleasure of having two wonderful guests that I've spoken to once before after their incredible run on I Am Iron Man. So, joining me tonight to talk about their brand new book that they have going right now is Maria Ayadele and Dotana Kande. Guys, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good,
I'm
doing good.
doing great. Yeah.
Good, good. Thank you so much for joining me. So we're going to talk about your newest book from Oni Press, and we talked about it before I started recording. I'm going to say it wrong, and so I'll throw it to you to correct me. This is Akogun, Brutalizer of Gods. Maria, tell me how wrong I am with that title.
It's closed. It's Akogun, but anyway, way you pronounce it, it's fine. It's fine.
Now, now I got a chance to read this first issue that came out this month, and I have to say, guys, it was fantastic as usual. Phenomenal storytelling, excellent artwork as always. Um, and for anybody that hasn't heard of it yet, what give us the log line? What do you how would you describe this book?
It's it's I would use the typical description that people usually use in the comic book industry. It's um it's God of War meets Conan the Barbarian. It's a story that follows a young African hunter in a primordial African world where gods are powerful beings. And this man, after suffering a severe tragedy, has to go on a revenge quest that would involve him clashing against the gods of his universe. It's brutal, it's sexy, it's raunchy, it's everything. Seriously action packed.
Yeah, absolutely. Datana, I wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
this is very much more adult than what people will have been used to if they've only seen your work for Marvel. Um, what's it like getting to kind of flex that different muscle where you get to kind of unleash a little bit more on this? Do you enjoy is there a freedom to that where you get to not censor everything as much as you would have to on something like an Avengers book or an Iron Man book?
I think there is some sort of freedom, yes, really, because uh but also I like the challenge, with
Hmm.
Marvel where you have to creatively tell your stories now
Right.
because you don't have to show all that and say all that. So that challenge is very interesting. It makes your creative juices run and everything. Here also, it's fun to just go loose and do everything you want to do without having to spend extra 15 hours thinking about how to play out a sequence. So yeah, I like the freedom. It's fun both ways actually. Great.
Right. Yeah, I was curious about that when I read this first issue of it was because like I said, I'm so used to what you guys have done with Marvel. I've read some of your other things as well, but that's mostly what I'm familiar with. And so it was fun to see a more brutal take because this book is brutal. It is graphic in many ways. I was surprised and delighted. I'll say it was a lot of fun to read. Um,
That's good.
so with the story, Maria, is this based on like traditional mythology in Africa, or is this something that you're kind of borrowing little bits from embellishing on for yourself? What is for us in America that really don't know a lot about that mythology? Is that something that you're adapting basically from stories that you would have known?
Yes, it's a combination of for example, everything that happens with Akogun himself, the character, is completely original to us,
Hmm.
while the actions happening with the gods is strongly inspired by Yoruba mythology. Is a tribe in West Africa and in Southern America, a tribe we also belong, Dotto and I belong to. So there are lots of folk tale and mythology about these gods that we try to mix a little bit of them and tell them in fresh, interesting ways, in more visually engaging ways in here. Because, for example, when the world was created by Obatala, he came along with chickens, cats, and seashells. It was the chicken that was scratching the earth and spreading the ground,
Sand.
but the sand, and that's what made the ground. So, but we tried to find something not too silly and wacky, and just made it something like, oh, something very badass, like, oh, he pulled the land from the sea. And so just little tweaks here and there, but it still holds true. You still get that what the story about how we created the world, what it actually means is, even though this God is a planner, just where we see our world, everything fits in all very perfectly. The plants, the animals, we are in this balanced thing. But at the same time, when it comes to human relationships, it seems very chaotic. And that's why the Yoruba gods, the Yoruba people believe that the God that created all those things was drunk, especially when it was creating the human beings. And that's what we kind of played around with, and see how far we can take that chaos between human relationship in the story.
Yeah, one thing that I was really impressed with this issue was seeing the difference in scale between the gods and the humans. I wasn't when I turned to that page where you see the humans working, and I apologize, I don't have the names down yet. But when you see the humans working along and kind of bringing wine and whatever to this god that's lounging in the sand, I didn't expect that much of a scale difference between the two of them. And Datana, I was going to bring that up to you as well. When you were laying all this out, is that how was I going to ask that question? Is that something that you really wanted to show in the scale difference, to really just differentiate between these gods and the power of them? Because I think that worked very well. So was that something that you consciously went into early on, or is that part of the folktales as well, that they're so much larger than life?
So initially, Muro and I wanted all the gods to be that big, giants and everything, like Obatala, the guy, the drunk god. But moving on, we thought it would be more visually interesting if we play with different sizes, with different gods, instead of having all of them just being big and everything, and just the humans being, miniature sizes of the gods, or stuff. So while we were working on it, um, we decided to just make Obatala and his brother, whom we've not revealed yet. Just those two gods will be the giant gods. And the other gods will just be like the height of Avatar, not the last Airbender now, the blue creatures.
Right.
Yeah. So that size, and the other gods, two other gods, giant. So yeah, those stuff we planned from the get go, but moving along, we just scaled it down and made these size disparities among the gods instead.
Yeah, like I said, it worked great on the page. It looked fantastic. I know you guys work really, really close together when you're working on these stories. It's not, one of you comes up with something and then the other one does, whatever. You guys work very closely together. How long has this been something that you've been working on before you were ready to bring it to the public?
Delso and I we've worked on several stories where we kind of play around with Yoruba mythology. I think there's one we published, I think around 2017, called God Killer. And then I think around 2020, we also did one called My Grandfather Was a God. So when Oni Press reached out to us last year, or in October, that's 2023, in October, and they said they wanted an African Conan story, basically. They wanted something sword and sorcery, but from our perspective. So we brought a lot of all those lessons we've learned from previous stories, and there are some that we've explored in typical ways. So we had no option but to explore this in an unusual way. And so even though we came up with this story like relatively close, but playing around with these gods, playing around with these characters. We already know how Shango talks. We already know how
Mhm.
Shango behaves. These are characters that will come up later. We know about this god. So it was easier jumping into this world. And like Dotto and I mentioned, the thing about the Yoruba gods that is strange is there are two sets of stories. There are stories of the gods told before they were human beings, and there were stories told after the human beings were created.
Mhm.
And the ones that happened after human beings were created, the gods themselves were reborn, like Jesus Christ in Christian mythology, were reborn as us. So they look
Mhm.
like us. But we were never given descriptions of how they look before the creation of human beings. And that's what we wanted to play around with. And we thought of Obatala and his brother, which we would reveal later. Like we could not see them small or normal heights. They are
Yeah.
so important to Yoruba mythology, so important. The Obatala's brother, especially, if you're going to do anything when it comes to like magical things, because there's something we call juju here, which is basically you performing magical acts with
Yeah.
by
Mhm.
invoking the name of gods. This particular god is always there. He's said to be the god that started divination. So things like that, where like these two gods are too important to Yoruba mythology that they just have to be giants. And
Yeah.
those are the little elements we'll be playing around with. And it's not just about 2017, 2018. Yoruba mythology is every day. When we've known these stories since we were little kids. They've
We're
told
born
us
in
these
it.
stories. Yeah, we've discovered new things, and sometimes it's like weird stuff, like maybe a neighbor dies, but the neighbor died by lightning. They're like, dying by lightning is too strange. He must have offended a witch doctor that sent the power of Shango to kill him, you know. So
Mhm.
different stories like that. So it's always been in our mind. We're like, okay, how can we present this to people that have not experienced this from birth, but in an easier way to digest.
Mhm.
And
and
yeah, that's
still,
that.
and hopefully not alienate the people who still believe in these things in
Yes,
practice.
yes. Because we have to be respectful.
Right.
Many of these gods are still being worshipped today. So it's also something we have to be careful on. Okay, how do we represent them with respect, but still be able to tell the brutal stories they've featured in? Because that's the thing about a lot of Yoruba gods. None of them are perfect. As in,
Yeah.
they're all
Mhm.
extremely flawed. And you wonder, like, most gods are usually presented in some levels of perfectionism, but
Mhm.
not them. They are even worshipped because of their flaws. Like, oh, this god gets angry easily, and when he gets
Yeah.
angry, he kills a million people or something like that. And you still see people worshiping and like, what if your God gets angry? They're like, no, he's going to get angry at my enemies, and different things like that. So yeah, it was really fun exploring and trying to find that balance
Mhm.
between respect and
Creative
showing the
liberty.
flaws. Yeah.
Yeah, I was curious about that. I was wondering about that fine line that you would have to kind of walk when you're dealing with it, because even just something, in a lot of Western cultures and in America, especially with Christianity, you have to really be careful. People get offended so very easily. You have to be very careful the things that you do, but you still also want to tell a good story, and you want to like you both said, you want to make it digestible and understandable for people who have never seen anything about this, but then also, not offend everyone that is still practicing in this worship. Um, so all I can say is that from my point of view, from completely outside looking in, it was very understandable and digestible, and you definitely hit that side of it. You would have to ask somebody.
Thank you.
You would have to ask somebody on the other side of that spectrum of whether they thought you were doing well. Have you gotten any kind of negative reaction, um, from, you know, certain camps of people that may think that you shouldn't be telling this kind of story?
Um, let's say not yet,
Not,
but but I hope it never comes
I hope
to,
so too.
because I don't want the god Shango or something, one of that god to be sent in my way.
Yeah. Yeah, let's hope not. Oh my. So yeah, that was genuinely a question that I was having because I was thinking about it as I was reading it and I thought, wow, you know, with the way that people are in just in America with Christianity and how very, very sensitive they can be. I mean, there are people that get um some pretty serious threats and vitriolic comments coming their way when they do anything that they see as even remotely disrespectful to Christianity. So let's cross our fingers or say that let's hope that that doesn't happen. Everybody can just see you're trying to tell a good story, and also I think it's wonderful because you're giving entire groups of people an opportunity to learn about something that they would never have an opportunity to learn. You know, I would never know anything about these stories, even if it's different than what it would be normally in the tales growing, you know, that you grew up with. I would have no idea what any of these gods are. I never would have heard of them without this opportunity. So I'm very excited about it because, you know, it's an entertaining story and I'm getting to learn about, you know, a culture that I had no understanding of before. So well done on that from my point of view. Um,
Yeah, the some of the most exciting feedback we've been getting is people being like, "Oh, I started reading up on Obatala, on
mhm,
Ogun, on these gods, and it's so fun learning about new mythology." So
mhm.
that's really been exciting, and that's made us very, very happy.
Yeah.
Because we also grew up also researching, especially Greek gods,
Mhm,
Zeus, the demigods like Jason, Hercules. I know the long hours I spent reading on this mythology triggered by various movies.
mhm.
So it feels good to be able to create that effect in people from other culture when it comes to our gods as well and our mythology.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so the next thing I wanted to move on to is the release schedule for this book. This is not a monthly book. Was that something that was planned out ahead of time, or is it because they came to you in, you said October, or is that just kind of because you guys needed a little bit extra time? Because this is not a normal size, but this is an uh, oversized
Yes.
book. So I would imagine that it takes, you know, a certain amount of time, especially with the artwork being incredible. Um, so yeah, so I
Uh,
was curious if you could talk about the release schedule for the book because it's not a monthly title that would come out every month.
there are various reasons for the bi-monthly schedule. Number one is Oni Press, when the marketing end of things. Oni Press said they've been having a lot of success with bi-monthly oversized books
Hmm.
where um, they have more time to market the book.
Hmm.
Like the issue you have with a lot of comic books is there's a lot of marketing, a lot of push done on issue one.
Right.
Then after then it gradually reduces because there isn't time to push for each issue. And
Hmm.
they've been having a lot of success, like books like The Dwellings,
Hmm.
where I think it's just Dwellings, where it's 70 pages by a monthly issue, and they've been having a lot of success with that. So they wanted to replicate that with our story. So that's the first one. Then the second one, story-wise, is and Dotsun's work schedule is it's oversized, so
Hmm.
it takes twice the time to work on those pages.
Right.
And he changed his art style for this format. He's been doing more rendering, more than line art, heavy inks, and so it takes more of his time. So it actually does need the time to be able to pull those fantastic pages together. So there are various things that came together for that bi-monthly schedule. And also, yeah, it's we got the news in October, we pitched in maybe November. So we had also had a little short period to start dishing out pages.
Yeah, I was when I saw how long it was, I was thinking about you a ton. I was thinking about how much work had to go into there. Not saying that Maru, that you haven't put in an incredible amount of work, but the detail and the artwork is always impressive when it's that one, especially the one. The thing that jumped out at me the most is I had to pull it up so I could look at the actual name of it. The Ninki Nanka.
Naka. Yeah.
Incredible artwork on that.
That's been everyone's favorite monster so far.
It's such a great monster.
Yeah.
And
I'm falling in love with it.
Yeah, the way that it looks as it disappears and comes back in the moonlight and everything was just that was such a cool monster. I could almost sit there and just read a whole story of somebody hunting against that thing. It was so awesome. I was going to ask you what your favorite monster has been to put to the page so far. Is it one we haven't seen yet, or is it the?
It's definitely the Ninkinanta. Yeah. So far.
So far, yeah.
So far.
There's a monster coming in issue 3. Yeah, issue 3. I think that's my favorite monster, the one coming in issue 3. And my second favorite is the gigantic forest monster that emerges from the ground. Yeah.
I can't wait to see what this one in issue 3 is going to be. If it's better than what we've seen, I'm sure it is going to be incredible. So you've talked about a couple of things. I know you don't want to spoil anything going forward, but is there anything that you can kind of tease to get people excited about for the next issue? Anything you're looking forward story wise that's not going to be too much of a spoiler for everybody?
Dalton, do you have some?
I'll just encourage people to ride along and see the story as Game of Thrones, kind of, with the galactic political gameplay amongst hedonistic gods. But we now have this lone hunter mortal thrust into all that nonsense. Yeah, it's really, really interesting looking forward. Issue 2 is crazier than issue 1, I should say. Wow.
It's like we've been hearing lots of reviews that people enjoyed issue 1, and it's funny that they don't know how much better 2 and 3 gets, especially the gap between 1 and 2. It grows to become this cosmic tale that you've seen in Stanley and Jack Kirby's Thor. How you have that cosmic level of like Asgard, and you're going to see that in this African style. The most popular god in Yoruba mythology is Shango, and we're going to see some brutal fights that will involve him. See him rip the limbs out of people, and you're going to love it.
Reckless.
Yeah. So yeah, it's future issues are crazy, and the monster in issue 3 is going to play a serious vital role in the plot. So it keeps getting better, it keeps getting more brutal. We keep pushing everything and seeing what Oni would allow us to do. Because I think in issue 2, some pages we still had to pushing back and forth for almost like 2 weeks. Like, we want to cross this line. They're like, "Are you sure?" We're like, "Yeah, we want to cross this line." So we want to, because we've seen Conan the Barbarian has been with Marvel for years. Titan Comics is pushing the Conan book in ways that we've not seen in years, and we want to push past that and see how far we can take the sword and sorcery genre in comic book formats, creating a new renaissance if possible. Let's push this medium, because we're big fans of fantasy. We're big fans of dark fantasy. We're big fans of sword and sorcery, and we've loved them in movies. We've loved them in novels, but we've not really had so much content of that in comic books. And we want to, for people that are like us, that's been hungry for things like that, we want to feed them, and yeah, want to have that fun.
Well, I'm very excited for this series, guys, for real. Not just because I'm a fan of you both personally. I've really enjoyed the first issue. I cannot wait to see where it goes. So issue 2 drops on June 12th. Is there anything else that you guys want to plug? Anything you've got coming up on top of this? Please, before you do anything else, to everybody watching, if you have not picked up issue 1, please do yourself a favor, check it out, and make sure you get issue 2 pre-ordered and ready to go, because this, you don't want to miss this one. But with that being said, is there anything you guys wanted to plug before we wrap this up?
We're already working on the story outline for a sequel to Akogun Brutalizer of Gods. That's going to be Akogun Revenge of the Gods.
Ooh,
And
that's
so,
exciting.
yeah, so it brutalizes the gods, but let's see what the gods are going to do back. So let's see how they're going to respond. So yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be by Dotun. It's going to be crazy. And the things I have working on, I can't share them yet, but
I
it's
understand.
probably involves the X office.
That's exciting. Don, you got anything coming other than anything you're allowed to talk about? You can just plug Akogun Volume Revenge of the Gods. I don't know why I
Yes.
started. I'm so concerned about mispronouncing the name that I'm forgetting what the
Don't
title.
worry. Don't worry about that. Revenge of the Gods, Akogun 1. These are like things on my mind right now that I can share.
Thank you so much for joining me here. Thank you for letting me be a tiny little part of helping you promote this book. I'm very excited for everything that you guys are doing. You deserve every bit of success that comes your way. If you're watching this and you're not following either of them, there will be links to social media in the description of this below. Make sure that you give them a follow and check out all of their work moving forward. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do everything you're supposed to do to help grow this video. Share it with your friends so that so we can get Akogun Brutalizer of Gods in more and more hands and get this story out there.